Okay. Time for the Pucking Around podcast. Puck around and find out.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey, everybody, come in and sit down for our new podcast, Pucking Around. We're talking hockey, Habs, Bruins, and Flyers. Give us a listen and see what transpires. We're all a little nervous. This is our first show. Sit back and relax. Here's what you need to know. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Rick. This is my YouTube channel. I do all kinds of shit. Over there you got the Boston Three. They love the Habs, the Bruins, and the Flyers, you see. We've also got a segment with Pete the Fifth. If I were you, I wouldn't miss it, man. Pete gets pissed. We'll talk about Habs hockey, Bruins, Flyers, NHL. We'll have a prospect report and a college roundup as well. So check out our show, see what we're all about. It's the Puck Around podcast. Puck around and find out. Hey, everybody. So I'm Rick Seligman, and welcome to the very first episode of the Pucking Around podcast. So we'll be bringing you both audio and video podcasts alternated every week, mostly pre-recorded, but every now and then we're going to do a live video podcast, so that'll happen. We'll mostly be talking about the Montreal Canadiens, Boston Bruins, and the Philadelphia Flyers, but we'll mix in some around the league talk and discuss big topics when they happen. The podcast will evolve over the next little while, so expect some changes to the format, but for now, I hope you enjoy the show. And let's get right to it. So let me introduce everybody that's here. We've got the Boston Three. We're going to start with Matt Norton. Say hi.
What's going on?
And over there, we got Alex Frenette.
Good afternoon or evening now, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone doing?
And then in the bottom corner, weighing 170. No, is Cam. I told you I'm going to screw this up. Sakarzik. Hey, Cam Sakarzik. There you go. He's got one of those names like Arbor Jacka. You look at it and go, how am I going to pronounce that? Cam, how you doing?
Good evening, Rick, from the Boston Harbor.
From the Boston Harbor.
In the harbor, too. He's in the harbor.
All right, we're going to not waste too much time here, and we're going to get into some talk about the offseason since this is the first, our first ever podcast, but also it's like 2 days before, it's a day before the NHL kicks off. So we're going to just talk a little bit about what our teams went through in the offseason, and I'm going to throw this over because me and Matt both love the Habs, and we're 2-1 on those guys. Matt, what did you think about the offseason for our team, the Montreal Canadiens?
I mean, it was certainly interesting. It was really good to see, a lot of the guys we've been talking about for a few years now, like, Beck and Waugh, and kind of see them really in full season form after really good years that they had on their respective junior teams. It'll be really, really good to see how they develop in Laval. I thought, Logan Mailloux, I think definitely was rusty at the beginning, but I was very impressed really with how he kind of seemed to kind of get a little better each game he played. But again, excited to see how he develops in Laval. Biggest takeaway for me, though, is the chemistry between Kirby Dach and Juraj Slafkovsky. I think that combination could wind up causing a lot of problems throughout the league. And that line in general, right now, it looks like that line's going to be Newhook, Dach, and Slafkovsky. So I'm really interested to see how that line plays out. I think the top six is actually quite nice if you really look at it on paper.
I'm going to now I'm going to give my opinion on the offseason, but I'm going to talk about the offseason. Matt actually was a good roundup for the training camp. Now in the offseason, what I liked the most was the guys that left. We were able to get rid of Mike Hoffman. Rem Pitlick, he wasn't going to do anything here. And, who would have thought they'd actually get a return for those guys, and they did. So there were some really good moves. I like the addition of Alex Newhook. That was really big. And I like the fact that they didn't acquire much more than that. And it was near the end, or just before the training camps, not long, where we got the other addition is Tanner Pearson. I like the fact that they moved out more guys than they brought in. Is what needed to happen. They moved some veterans out that needed to go, and made some room. And that, to me, that's the biggest takeaway is that
and Yoel Armia is not on the team anymore.
That just happened, though. So, but the biggest takeaway for me is their commitment to what they needed to do, and that is move out the old that needed to go and make room for these young guys coming in. They did that. They made some. Our GM is just a genius, and that's the takeaway. Training camp was great. I agree with what Matt said. Alex, how'd the Flyers do?
Oh, I got to say this. This is a very eventful offseason for Philadelphia. For the number one thing that finally was accepted that really needed to happen for a very long time is they used the big R word, rebuild. And I cannot stress hard enough how overdue this is, because our prior general manager, who has now been thankfully terminated, Chuck Fletcher, continuously tried throwing his head against a wall, trying to run this retool on the fly that just continuously failed miserably. And Danny Briere is now taken over as the full-time general manager. You also have Keith Jones now, the president of hockey ops, which I was a little critical of the move at first, but now that I'm starting to see things, I'm liking it. Flyers made some interesting offseason moves. The biggest move was the Ivan Provorov trade. They sent Ivan in a 3-team mix, sending Ivan Provorov over to the Columbus Blue Jackets, also involving the LA Kings, where they acquired Walker, Cal Peterson. They got a first-round pick that was the Kings, but was being held on to by Columbus, which ended up being pick 22. That turned into Oliver Bonk. But overall, that was a good trade. There was supposed to be another massive trade with the St. Louis Blues that kind of imploded because of a certain individual, Torrey Krug, not wanting to waive his no trade clause.
I remember that.
So it ended up just being a small.
Alex is red hot.
Kevin for a 6th-round pick. We ate half the salary, but you know what? It had to go. Him and Tortorella just didn't really seem to mesh. So, I mean, I wasn't crazy about the move, but I understood it. It had to happen. There were other few minor signings. Mark Stahl on the D core.
You can have him.
Who you guys are very familiar with. But the biggest thing is the Flyers, for the first time in a while, I can actually say for the most part, are healthy. Cam Atkinson and Sean Couturier are both back. Sean Couturier for the first time in almost 2 full seasons.
It's been that long, eh? I remember when he went out. He hasn't been back since.
He had multiple back surgeries, and he's finally back to 100%. It looks like that he's going to be good to go, like no restrictions. He could have came back late last season, but Danny Briere told him, listen, take the off season. We don't want to rush you. I know you want to get some 8 or so games to play, but take the off season, relax, recoup. Get ready, get right, get full strength. And that's exactly what they did. Cam Atkinson, who is more of a great locker room guy, and he's still a great goal scorer too. When healthy, he can put potentially 25 goals in a season for us. Yeah. But the thing I love about Cam is he's a very humble dude. He's good for the kids, and he's going to be there to be a good leadership role. And this team has a lot of youth coming into it.
Yeah, you need
the Flyers just announced their roster today. Emil Adrande made the roster. Rasmus Ristolainen will be starting the season on IR, which is actually a little surprising to me. Bobby Brink, who had a phenomenal camp, and I mean phenomenal. He earned a spot on this team. Him and Sean Couturier had almost instant chemistry, and I would not be surprised to see him play some top 6 minutes. Tyson Forster, who's probably the Flyers' number 3 prospect, also made the team, who I'm also looking forward to. In 8 games last year, he put up 7 points, 3 goals, 4 assists. So he looks like someone who could really be a potential top 6 mixer for the long haul for this team. But their D-core is going to be atrocious this year. And you know what? It's fun. It is a year where I look at this team that I know the forward core is going to be young, but has potential with Owen Tippett, Travis Konechny. Scott Lawton can continue to provide a decent leadership role. And like I said, Couturier's back. Atkinson's back. I'm looking forward to see Morgan Frost, to see how he continues to develop. Joel Farabee is now a full year off of his neck surgery. He had a full off season. He looks stronger and faster now. So I think this team on paper offensively, forward core is not as bad as some teams think. They are, I think, a almost middle of the pack forward where they just don't got the star power. They have plenty of depth, but they don't got that elite goal scoring talent yet until Mitch Koff and Gauthier get here. But the massive issue is going to be that D-core.
The hope is beginning, in other words, over there, sounds like.
There is hope, and for the first time in a while, there is a plan, which is something I've emphasized in the matters of consistency. This team needed a plan. This team needed a direction. And Danny Briere and Keith Jones may have finally put this team on track for said plan. But it's going to take time, and they can't take any shortcuts.
Rebuilds always take time. Before we get over to Cam and the Bruins, I want to ask one last thing. They sending Provorov over to Blue Jackets, kind of like the way we got rid of Hoffman. Like it's what's the word I'm looking for? We're just so happy to send him somewhere else. It's kind of like that with Provorov, no?
I personally didn't even have an issue with Ivan Provorov, the player. He was starting to regress a little bit, and I feel like he didn't really want to be here long term. And they got a fantastic haul from him. They got a first-round pick. They got a second-round pick. Helen Grimes, who's a middle pairing prospect defenseman. And they took on 2 contracts that both have no more than 2 years left on them, which is fine.
That's not so bad.
So you're taking short-term money in to bring in some assets to help further along your rebuild. You got a 2024 second from Columbus too as well, which should be helpful for next year's draft.
Yeah, for Columbus, I mean, that was I think a horrible deal. Like they brought this guy in.
I was elated at it. They got a very good haul. This is the first trade.
Yeah, but I'm saying for Columbus, they took in a guy that they want as like their number 1 defenseman. He's not that.
He's going to be probably playing in the second pair. I think it's going to be more Werenski and Jiricek in that first pairing, but we'll see. I don't know. The thing with Provorov is he needed a fresh start. He was committing way too many turnovers in the back end here.
We'll see how it works.
We'll see how that goes for Columbus, but I love the deal on our end.
Alex, what's the deal with Ryan Ellis?
He's never playing again.
I read that.
He has a very weird condition. He's on LTIR. It's career ending. He has something. I don't know if it's his groin or his pelvis area, but he's got a muscle that is torn.
Don't we all have a muscle in the groin?
Well, I can't even remember what the specific injury is. I just know it's in that area. That is an extremely rare injury. That's something I could probably give you an answer on real quick, but it's the issue with him is this is a career-ending injury.
Yeah, he's done. I read that. He's done.
And it's unfortunate. There was so much hope with that trade when they first made it, and he was going to be here, and he's supposed to be that number 2 D man. They had him for 6 years locked up, and he played 4 games.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
Right.
All right, Cam.
Yeah.
Cam, let's get into some Bruins.
All right, sorry, continue.
No, it's okay. It's okay. How do you think the offseason went for your team?
Depressing. There's no sugarcoating that losing, not just Bergeron, Krejci, but you lose Hall, Nosek, Orlov, Foligno, Clifton, among others.
Bertuzzi.
Bertuzzi. Well, whatever.
Orlov.
Yeah, number 1 fan club of Tyler Bertuzzi.
Yeah, not a big fan of Bertuzzi, especially how he handled the contract situation and how he wanted to keep circling back with Boston. But as that was rumored, but losing all those guys wasn't easy. I mean, just from an emotional standpoint, Bergeron was someone I greatly looked up to. So seeing him hang up the skates was definitely hard.
Especially how you guys went out of the playoffs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like that's just.
Yeah. Call me a bitter Bruins fan, but when you ride a hot goaltender and then get blown out in the final game 9-3, I don't know if you really deserve to be there.
Cam, how do you feel about that top 6 this year?
We have a top 6.
Well, let me ask this:
I think that's actually true.
if you were the head coach of the Bruins, how would you layer the top 6 on opening night?
To be honest with you, I really don't like Zacha as the first line center. I think he's got some good untapped potential, but I would feel more comfortable putting Charlie Coyle. I think he just has a little bit more experience at center. He had a career high of 52% last year in the dot, albeit it was, on the third line, but Jim Montgomery rolled 4 lines. There were times where the fourth line was going up against top line centers and Nosek was winning faceoffs. So I would much rather Coyle. That's the only switch I would make right now. There's a projection where James Van Riemsdyk is on the first line, and I just personally don't think Marchand should be on the second just because that is your captain. But you would then need to flip Marchand and Pasternak, and it's about that even distribution of talent in what I would deem not as deep of a team that you had. I mean, I don't think, there's no question it's not nearly as deep as last year.
Yeah.
And by far.
Yeah.
But I mean, it also back on the the wagon of historical people coming back. But I thought it was good to see Luch come back.
You can have him.
Yeah,
you can have him. No problem.
I mean, I will say this: I watched him in preseason. He looks like he has some youth that kind of revitalized him, so that was kind of good to see. He's definitely not where he was 10 years ago.
I think he's very happy to be there. Is what it seems.
I think so too.
He loves it in Boston. He definitely.
Definitely. That's why he's rejuvenated.
You might see a Lucic that plays a lot harder. He obviously is the player he was, but a lot harder than he did in his days in Calgary.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're going to see him somewhat rejuvenated. I mean, he's 35, so you gotta take that into consideration. And the team definitely didn't get younger; they think they got older. We acquired Shattenkirk, which is I think he's going to replace Clifton, and I think he'll be a good bottom pair. He's got a lot of NHL experience. Been on 7 teams. I think Morgan Geekie was a sneaky pickup. I think if they can develop him here in Boston, and especially having a mentor like Bergeron, who will undoubtedly be involved in the team in some capacity at a center. The addition of Boquist, depending if they call him back up, that might be someone to watch out for. But yeah,
will they drop out of the playoffs?
No,
I don't think they will either.
I genuinely think they're not going to be the beasts of the East that they were last year, but they're definitely going to make the playoffs, whether it's by the skin of their teeth or not. But that the big key reason why is the goaltending tandem hasn't changed. The defense hasn't really changed. If you look at it, you really lost Clifton and Orlov, but I'm not going to count Orlov because he was a trade deadline acquisition. So if you really think about it, that decor didn't change. The only concern
he was fucking good though.
Huh?
I mean, he was fucking good for you guys though.
I mean, yeah, but still, he wasn't. He supplied additional support in an already healthy team. My concern is if the defense can stay healthy. So if they do stay healthy like last year, I think they make the playoffs.
Yeah. So that's why that'd be my concern with Shattenkirk, just because of his age.
Yeah, but I like Ian Mitchell. I think he showed something. Also, Mason Lowry had a good training camp. So I think there's definitely people in the wings. That kid in Matthew Poitras or Poitras, however his last name is pronounced.
Poitras or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard he was a stud in training camp.
Averaging 58% in his face-offs. He had 4 points in 4 games. And I mean, you got to look at it.
Second-round pick?
He was a second-round pick. They weren't comparing him to Bergeron. They're saying he's a more Krejci-esque like type player. But getting that at 19 is still a high praise. Krejci was a hockey IQ whiz. His eyesight was phenomenal. So I mean, I'm looking to see. Hopefully, he develops even better, and maybe he turns out to be a second-round steal. In terms of our draft picks, yeah, we'll wait a while, I guess.
Well, you traded them all away, didn't you guys do that?
Yeah, we ain't got nothing.
Cupboard's bare, but that's what
and Fabian Lysell kind of shit himself in the preseason too. His stock fell.
This might be maybe not so much of a hot take, but I actually want them to trade him. I think when you were a first-round pick and you were picked earlier than Pasternak or something along those lines, I think he was 22nd or 21st overall a couple years ago, but I watched him play in Providence, no effort. I watched him in the preseason, no effort, and he was and one of the commentators mentioned that he was cherry picking. I'm like, this is the NHL. This isn't Xbox. You don't cherry pick. So yeah, I kind of want him traded.
Yeah.
And
it's a knock on Lafreniere too. Is he's no effort.
Well, look, and kind of bring it back to the Habs. That's why Armia is gone. I mean, he and who is it?
That's why Kevin Hayes
Hockey Junkie retweeted something about the fact that we kind of have standards now. If you don't put in the effort, I don't care who you are. You're not making you're not gonna have a spot on this team. And
I saw
just didn't work hard at all, so they said.
I saw the press stuff. Marty St. Louis talked about it. I believe it was in French though. So, but I caught what he was saying, and he basically he said that. It was on him. He didn't try hard enough, and it's basically where I'm paraphrasing, but he addressed that and said he spoke to him before they waived him. I think officially he's been sent down now to Laval.
Mm-hmm.
So yay! That's another thing I'm very happy with. It kind of, I guess it's the off season, but it did not. I didn't have my chance to talk about, I guess, the training camp. So I'm going to talk about what my thoughts on the Habs training camp. I really like the Habs training camp. If you watch the preseason games, it looked like we got a really bad team. But then the last game of the preseason, they really showed what they're going to be. I'm looking forward to seeing that power play of ours. It looked better. The results weren't really there. They weren't. But like St. Louis said, there's a lot of stuff there that's encouraging that hasn't been there before. So we'll see if we're going to have a better power play. I'm really encouraged about Slavkovsky. I didn't think
so.
I
The
didn't
game
think
against the Leafs too. I mean, I thought he and Doc really worked their socks off.
They worked together well. I didn't think he'd be able to earn a second line slot. He has to start the season. I'm really encouraged with Slavkovsky and just the top six in general. I'm rubbing my hands together now. I can't wait to see that.
It's really not a bad top six at all.
I kind of like
Caulfield, Suzuki, Anderson, and then Newhook, Doc, and Slavkovsky. It's not a bad top six.
No,
it's really not.
Kind of want to add to that with Slavkovsky. What would it take for you guys to be satisfied with his pick at being the number one overall guy from, 2 years ago now? Because he obviously got off to a little bit of a rocky start. It looks like he's starting to find his wheels a little bit.
Here's how I've actually said it to people on the channel. Not every first overall pick is a star the next year in his draft one. Just look at Jack Hughes. Mm-hmm. Right, I even thought Jack Hughes might have been. Maybe they shouldn't have. And then this last season, and he's So I see Slavkovsky that way. I think the Habs saw him that way and picked him knowing he's a project. But when they've worked on him for a few years, he's going to be one of the best players in that draft. And I think a lot of Habs fans that have come down on him this training camp, he started to show what he's going to be.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think anybody thought Slavkovsky would earn a second line slot out of camp.
Yeah, Rick, I agree with your point when you said that not every player or every first round pick, first overall pick is guaranteed to work out the first year or even ever, to be honest with you. If you
look at Lafreniere right now. Right?
He's playing the third line. I mean, he's probably going to be elevated because the Rangers also lost a tremendous amount of talent. But if you also look at even further back, look at Neil Yakupov and all of the
what a disaster that was. For
look at all the busts that unfortunately Edmonton had until they finally got McJesus. But
and they traded Taylor Hall 1-for-1 for Adam Larson.
I mean, didn't they take Nuge? They took Nuge, I think, first overall one year too. I love Nuge. Nuge's one of my favorite plays.
But
he's not been.
Even Rasmus Dahlin, I think, took. I mean, I can't remember if he was first overall.
Took a little bit of time.
He took a couple years. Yeah. I know he was a defenseman, but I mean, still, he took a couple years.
Go back to the great Guy Lafleur. Took 3 years.
But you also look at late round steals too. I mean, you know what I mean? If you second and third, Marchand was a third round pick, for example, just from a Boston perspective. Yeah. I mean, he's arguably one of the best left wingers in the game.
That's why, I mean, good drafting. And listen, there was that video for the Habs where they went behind the scenes for this draft. One of the scouts said something that's really important, and it goes right here. You got to hit a home run on every pick. In other words, you got to do your best because there's home runs in every round. You got to find those guys.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at the first draft that Gordon and Hughes had together, that Slavkovsky draft, right?
Right.
I mean, after Slavkovsky, Mishar, Beck, Hudson, 3 in a row, right? I mean, Mishar, I don't know if he's really at some point he might get up here, but I mean, Owen Beck and Lane Hudson are for sure NHLers. I think for sure. The two of them are fantastic. I mean, Lane Hudson's going to be a top pair D-man once he hits.
I've seen some of Mishar's play. And I hadn't seen a lot of him for some reason. I didn't key on him when I was watching games he played in, but in replays or highlights, he's going to be good. No, I mean, will he be good enough though for the talent that's here? I don't know, but at very least trading him. It's a good trade piece.
Yeah.
No, this is a good asset. You know what though? Who was picked after him?
It was Owen Beck and then Lane Hudson.
Okay, so should he have been picked ahead of Lane Hudson? No.
No.
And you might say it.
I think there are probably 4 dozen players picked before Lane Hudson that shouldn't have been.
And Lane Hudson, in 5 years, we may look back and say he was the best player in the draft.
It was a home run.
Oh yeah, I think Owen Beck might get up to that point too. I absolutely love
not
Owen
over
Beck.
Lane
Buffalo
Hudson.
has 2 defense.
Not overly hot, but I'm just saying, like Owen Beck, I think we might look at him and say, maybe he should have went in the first round.
But
Yeah.
Buffalo has 2 defensemen that are going to be absolute stud cornerstone pieces.
They just signed. Did you
Owen
see?
Power.
They
Owen
just signed
Power.
Dahlin. Wait, they just signed Dahlin, 8 years, $11 million.
Yeah.
Owen
he's
Power.
he's going to be worth that money.
I
Adams
don't
Dahlin
know.
is gonna be worth
I
that
get
money.
it.
I do. I think he's going to be worth
I get it, but I'm saying mistake. It's too much money.
The
But
problem
the
with that
cap's going to increase. It's going to be worth it in the long haul because
Maybe.
it's supposed to be projected to go up by almost $5 million this year, and it's going to keep going up. 11
3.5
million now.
to 3.5 to 4.5. That's the
Yeah.
early projection.
So
But-
the 8x11 now, 3-4 years from now, is going to look like a bargain when some of these lockdown guys are going to be getting paid 13 to 14 mil. Look at McAvoy. At the time, he got 9.5 mil, and people like, oh, does he deserve that? Now that looks like a steal of a contract.
How
Yeah.
old is Dahlin? That's what I'm not sure.
He's in his early to mid 20s. He's not that
24,
old.
25. No, maybe younger. I think he's maybe between
I'll-
23 and
I'll check
25,
on
somewhere around there.
No, he's a couple years old. I think he's 20. I think he's 20. I want to say 23. No,
23, you're right, Nody. He's
23. I was thinking because he's at least a year or two older than Cole Caulfield.
He's
Yeah,
31.
he's
when he's
23.
over.
But he's deserving of that. That he's been
Maybe I
sensational. He had a
should-
breakout year this year.
Yeah, I don't really have
I
an
just-
issue with that. I don't know about Shifley and Hellebuck getting 8.5 million.
That shocked me
for
because
7
the
years.
sheer fact is what you were hearing with Winnipeg just sounded like complete chaos and anarchy. Like it just seemed like everyone wanted out. It was a giant locker room issue, and now you suddenly sign your 2 cornerstone guys to these long-term deals. It's like,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
And Hellebuck also mentioned that he didn't even want to stay there. He didn't.
didn't.
want to
I
stay.
thought he was going to go to New Jersey. I really
I
thought
heard-
he was going to go to New Jersey this offseason.
I heard they're gonna play this year, and they were gonna kind of see how it goes for to sign. And I didn't hear that they both signed.
But I'm
but
also gonna be
Yes,
surprised-
it was today, Rick. They both signed for 7 years, 8.5 million AAV.
I guess
I-
they feel that
They'll
there's
both
a
be
good direction.
38 when those contracts expire.
and
Well,
it's
then
just
now
a
you know
quick
why they
win.
did it. That's good. There's horrible contracts. By the end of those contracts, there'll be horrible contracts.
I
Well, how old
It
is
depends.
Shifley?
They're both 31.
Oh yeah, never mind. Yeah, those are going to be horrible.
Well,
You're right.
what was-
And I hate Shifley.
At the end,
he
yeah.
could be.
I mean, Hellebuck will probably be worth it because this guy
He's a goalie. Goalie will be
Goalies
longer.
last longer.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
looks good still. I
Well-
think he's got another 4 or 5 years left in his prime.
Hey, Tim Thomas won a cup at 36 years old. You know what I
won a
mean?
Vezina
You
around that
never
age.
know.
Goalies
Absolutely.
last longer. Goalies, it's not
Yes.
goalies. They
Yeah.
I
they
think
get their
Hellebuck
prime a
will be
little
fine.
later, and they last longer.
Maybe the last 2 years of that contract, you'd be like, but who cares if the first
I mean,
5 are
The
great?
Shifley one's not going to be good.
Yeah, the Shifley one's going to be one of those contracts in year 3 or 4 you look at. I was like, why did we do that?
And
Yeah.
well,
Why
the-
playing cards seem to be
to
doing
your
Yeah.
point on the goalies, like it's barring any injury. I mean, you know what I mean. If you,
Well,
if
you
you
can say that about anyone, but yeah.
yeah,
sure.
but if you get a hit, well, specifically the hip, yeah, forget
sure.
it.
Yeah.
The
Or
hip
the
goes,
knee.
your career goes.
Or
up.
the knee.
Or the knee.
Or
Or the
knee.
knee.
Anything
Gary
lower
Price, who had
body.
both.
Let's just say that.
Well, from what I understand about hips, all goalies will have bad hips by
Mhm.
the end of their careers.
Oh,
It's
yeah, I
inherent
mean,
in the. It's like a catcher in baseball. You're gonna have bad hips
Yep. that's
from
just
all that
part
up
of it.
and down and all that. Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
just sorry, back to like
Good.
what Alex's question with Slavkovsky, because like what it's going to take, just because I don't think that was necessarily answered. But I think if I'm Montreal, I'm looking for at least 20 goals from him this year.
If that's what Alex meant, I thought it was just the improved play. I thought I answered that. It's that improved play we're seeing from him, where we're seeing, oh, this is what they saw in him.
I'd love to see
I
20
think that
and
to
20.
me is enough. The progression. That's all
20
I want to
goals,
see.
20 assists.
I'm
And
going to
I
give
think-
you.
he should certainly reach that assist-wise.
Oh,
I'm
I
gonna
had
give
him
you a
for
team I
18 and
kinda-
25.
I'm going to want to watch a little bit. Is Ottawa Senators still have a little bit of an issue with their cap? Like they
Do
have
they?
to get under the cap by tonight?
Everybody
Everybody
does. Everybody
So
does.
doesn't Toronto.
So do we.
What
I
did
mentioned
Toronto
this-
do? What did they do to get under the cap? I didn't hear. I didn't see.
I
that.
Matt
mentioned
Murray's on LTIR, but
Yeah, but that we already knew.
I mentioned this to you guys in our group chat that we had, that there's going to be a lot of teams right now that aren't going to have the capacity to have their full 23-man roster because of the cap situation.
Yeah.
And Ottawa is really in danger. They still have a couple RFAs and Shane Pinto, and I think another individual.
I think it's just Pinto right now.
I think
but
it's just
still.
Pinto.
Oh, they did. Oh, so they did solve that problem. And then I was reading somewhere
But
on Twitter
Pinto
that.
did.
Well, I was reading somewhere on Twitter that someone had said, like, well, they're going to end up signing him, but I was reading elsewhere that they're likely going to need to move him. They're not going
And
to.
Philadelphia was one of the teams that was interested in Pinto. They almost moved him to Philly, and the Flyers offered to take one of their contracts. I think it was Joseph that they were talking about, and we would take his contract as long as we got Pinto back. And I don't know what the return would have been. It would have been a roster player. I don't specifically remember who. Scott Lawton was a name I heard as a possibility, but there was some talks when it came down to that Philly was the number one team that was going after him. But I don't know if they're going to end up circling around to that last second. But I don't know how they're going to fit him under. Like, you got to get under by midnight. It's 3 hours and 33 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm curious, actually, what is their cap space? Because that's gonna. They have $62,000 in cap, so that would be a bit of a pay cut.
Who's got?
Yeah, especially when the minimum contract is about $750K, roughly. I think it's a little more, but you know what I mean.
So Leafs also sent Connor Timmins to LTIR.
And they're 12 million over on cap friendly right now. They haven't done what they need to do yet.
Fern, the Flyers also sent John Randall Avon to LTIR.
Yeah, I heard him. He's a AHLer, so I mean, I guess that's just there as a cap move.
I mean, I have a huge problem with Toronto and how the league is letting them handle their cap situation, especially when Matt Murray has posted several times saying like, "Oh, he's fine. I would have taken a picture. I would have played."
Matt Murray had hip something surgery today. He's out 6 to 8 months.
Oh, yeah, that's
so he's I think he actually was a little more hurt than we
he had surgery
thought, but
oh yeah, I'm sure it's coincidence. Yeah,
something. But yeah,
No,
I don't know.
Well, listen, all
Thought it
goalies
was
have
interesting.
problems with the hips. All goalies.
Yeah.
So it could still be. They said, "Listen, Matt, yeah, you're having surgery," and he went and had surgery. So, anyways, but it's not taken off. Like they're not under the cap. There's still a bunch.
The
of
Leafs
teams.
right now are at the cap.
yeah.
The Leafs, they're not showing that here.
I'm on cap friendly on my phone right now. They
I'm
are
not
at the cap.
friendly.
Yep.
They're
I'm very
at-
curious to
they're
see
at
what
the
Ottawa
cap.
does.
They're everybody that they can put on LTIR is already on LTIR. So they're not gonna have
Oh, they
relief.
went to off-season LTIR.
They did, and they only have they're 2 players short on their roster, so if they have injuries, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
No,
this-
if you have an
there's gonna be a lot
injury,
of-
you can
depending
make-
on the injury. Nope. Depending on the injury. If it's just an injury, the guy's out for a week, you're getting nothing. You got to suffer.
And I think that's the problem. And I think that's a problem. It's not just them that they're having. The Bruins are having that too. We might only be able to start 21 too. I mean, so you only get
The
one
Habs, too.
number of players.
Habs too, I believe. It's not just a few teams. I think a bunch of teams. are
Yeah,
gonna
the
have to
Bruins
do
only
that.
have 21 guys on the roster too.
But you want to know what too, Rick? Like you got to say if one guy gets injured, that's fine because you can always call someone up and put someone down. What's going to happen is if you get 2 guys injured and they're only out for a week, you got to pray.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you are going to be slapped with a penalty, and I don't understand what the penalty is anymore. But that's going to be a problem.
When does that kick in? When you're under 20 or under 18, guys? Like I think you can
it's
start with 19 on there, and you're okay for a game.
I think
But
it's 18, but I'm not.
I think it's 18. You can't go under 18 on the roster for a game. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Well, that would just be 12 forwards.
I don't think you can go under 20.
Yeah,
because
you can.
you're
Habs did it.
required-
No, the Habs
Oh,
did
yeah.
it in the Habs did it in the season where there was the All Canadian division.
The Rangers played a few
I'm
games
quite
where they
sure-
only had 10 guys dressed for forwards, I believe.
or was the next season? We did it the last 2 seasons we had like record number of man games out. The first of those seasons, we did play a game where we had only 19, maybe even it was 18.
Yeah. I believe
allowed
the
to do
New
that.
York Rangers did that last year. They had a
Yeah.
game or two where they had 10 players dressed.
Toronto
for
did it
forwards.
a couple of years ago too. So you can go, but you can't go below 18. Then I think then you're allowed an emergency call up.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
We had a few of those used last year in Philly. I think they had at least 2 or 3 of them, bare minimum.
Yeah, well, it's more and more common now because of this flat cap. It'll change as the cap, it's going to take 2-3 years for the cap going up before all teams are out of this cap problem.
I mean, you're seeing bridge deals kind of everywhere. I mean, look at Trevor Zegras. I mean, the man is making I think it was like 5.5, something along those lines.
Although Anaheim has plenty of money, though. So if it's a bridge deal with Zegras, I think that's what he wanted.
But I don't know if it's what they wanted, but they also had Drysdale that they needed to sign too, and they're both going to want money because Drysdale's their top defensive prospect. And Zegras is obviously going to be their top center. So they're both going to be worth around $8 million.
At some point, and I don't remember how far back, Anaheim had the most money left on the cap, $19 million.
They did until I believe they absorbed some of Alex Killorn because I believe they signed him.
They signed Killorn, but I mean, at some point they had a ton of money. I can't think that they signed Zegras to only 2 years was because of a cap thing.
Yeah, and I think they signed. Yeah, no, they did. Yeah, they do still have $8 million in cap, and I think they're going to reserve that if they can increase their team.
Well, they're rebuilding, I guess, so they know they need the cap. They're being smart. I think that's a smart thing not to go crazy, especially in a year you're not making the playoffs, right?
No, and I think they did it because they know Cam Fowler's up in 3 years. They know Radko Gudas is up in 3 years. So I think that's the time they're going to reevaluate, So I think that's it. So it was smart.
They had to add to that decor because Anaheim's decor last year was historic bad. Like when you looked at it top to bottom.
Yeah, they were a bad team. Didn't they finish last?
Yes, they were last in the entire league, but the biggest reason was because that defense. They weren't just a bad team; their defense was historically awful.
Yeah, their offense.
It could be ours this year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, their offense
is not going to be ours. All right, let's switch over to let's look ahead. Season starting. We're recording this on Monday night. Season starting. Actually, tomorrow night, the official start. Habs don't start till Wednesday. I don't know when Bruins and Flyers' first game is.
Flyers is Thursday.
So Bruins is Wednesday.
Okay, so but officially the league opens up tomorrow with games.
Yep.
Let's take a look ahead. What you guys feel, to look for in the first couple of games this upcoming week. Again, Matt, I'm going to let you start. Are you ready to start? If not, I'll start. I'll start. So we're opening up against the Leafs, and if anybody listens or watches my channel, I hate the fucking Leafs. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Montreal beat them again. We beat them 5-4 in overtime. It was in overtime, and we had to come back and fight really hard coming back in Game 5 of the preseason. So it was very satisfying. Why? Because we had played 3 games in a row with the Leafs. First 2 games, they put out a grinder, shitty lineup. But this third one, and they beat us in those games, but this third one had the big boys out there, and we beat them. And I always like that. And that's what's going to happen on Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this new top 6 looks against. I mean, let's face it, Toronto could win the league and get the President's Trophy. They could be that good. They're a regular season team with no heart. So when the playoffs come around, they can't score, or their big guys just, they're afraid and they sit in the corner. So, so I'm looking forward to that. And then Saturday, the second game of the season is at home, and we get to see Connor Bedard. And I'm looking forward to seeing Connor Bedard early in the season before he's got his full legs under him this season. I'm just curious to see what he looks like, and I'm excited about that. So that's for this season. For this week coming up, I just want to see how this lineup that they put together looks. And these two games, which I want them. Well, they're going to beat Chicago.
Does
but,
Montreal
yeah.
always open against the Leafs? I feel like you see that
Lately
every
only.
single year.
Literally, yeah. What?
Last
It's got to
5
be what, the
years?
last 5-6 years.
5-6 years. It's
I was gonna say,
traditional.
it feels like every single year
Yeah.
Montreal and Toronto open against each other.
Yeah. It's because Sportsnet, I don't know if they have any kind of say, but, they're in bed with the league anyway. They own, they're part owners, or they have an interest in the Leafs. That's why they push them so much. They want them to beat Montreal because there's such a big rivalry, but we usually manage to win the first game.
Yeah,
Almost
last
every year we
was
beat
awesome
them.
too, right? With Anderson winning
Yeah.
it with like 7 seconds left.
Yeah, we usually beat them in that first game. So, yeah. And I don't know the reason why it's always like that. Matt, we'll get you in a sec. Let's move around since Cam's sitting next to me there on that side. Cam, how do you feel your Bruins are going to start the season?
So we only have 2 games this week. It's kind of interesting. So yeah, you mentioned Connor Bedard, and I'm really excited to see him play against Boston on October 11th.
Yeah, that's your opener.
Oh,
right?
you open with them. Oh,
Yeah.
And I think he is going to be an immediate impact player if you've seen him in preseason. I mean, I know this isn't the Connor Bedard show, but I'm just excited to see what he does. If he scores a goal or two against Boston, I'm not going to be mad. But I still think the Bruins beat Chicago. Their goalie situation, their defense is just, outside of Seth Jones, they really don't have much of anything going for them.
There's guys on that team I've never heard of.
Chicago, even with Connor Bedard there, they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they did surround Bedard with some decent offensive talent, but I'm also concerned with who the hell is going to protect him. You have some big, scary defense. Yeah, Scary Perry. Very, very afraid.
But his back is a ticking time bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we also have Lucic, and he put someone through glass, so I think I'm not intimidated by Foligno. As much as I love Fliggy, and I do love Fliggy, I think Lucic and him would actually have an interesting bout if it were to ever come to that. And then we have Nashville on the 14th, and I think that's also going to be a win by the Bruins. I think
that game might end up kind of close.
I think it's going to come down to a depth piece, but I think we have the better goalie, and I think we have the better defense. If you kind of look at it, yes, they have Roman Josi, Tyson Barrie, Ryan McDonough, but
Saros also is a very, very good goalie. That's why I think it might be kind of close.
He is, but I still think they have some defensive concerns. And I still think Ryan O'Reilly, them signing him was not enough. You need more. They have Forsberg and Gustav Nyquist and Cody Glass, but that it doesn't.
And he's not young. O'Reilly's not a young kid that he's going to be have that big of an impact over there.
They'll win the face-off. They'll definitely
for sure. But I get what you're saying. Nice signing for them. But it's how old is he now, O'Reilly?
Mid-30s.
33, 35, something like that, right?
Mid-30s.
Yeah. He'll have a bit of an impact, but not a super big one.
So I think the Bruins, best case, go 2-0 in their opening week. Worst case, 1-0-1.
Let me ask you something. If you have 2 games and you go 2-0, isn't that the best case scenario?
Well, yeah, no, but the worst case scenario would be I think 1-0-1 in my opinion. But
wouldn't the worst case scenario technically be 0-2?
Yes,
it would.
No, not for me. No, I don't think we lose the 2 games. Sure, you could argue.
You're both right.
I think worst case
in theory, if you have 2 games and you lose them both, that's kind of the worst you could have done.
Exactly. We're just having fun with you, Cam.
But no, I agree with you, Cam. I think the worst the Bruins should do is probably 1-0-1. They should win both. But that Nashville game, I think, could end up being a little bit closer than you'd like.
Can I say something? And this is something that I've noticed over my 50-odd years of watching NHL hockey. Sometimes the bad teams, they're going to end up being the bad teams, have great starts. So
Buffalo,
Chicago,
how many years did they go 11-0?
Wait, a team like Chicago,
ridiculous a few years.
a team like Chicago and your Flyers, Alex.
We started
Could have-
3-0 last year.
Yeah, you could have great starts because that's what happens so many times. Usually the leaders in the first month aren't the leaders
Yeah.
in the second or third.
We started
like,
7-2-2 to begin last year, and then just the
Just saying.
Actually, Rick, I want to comment on that because there's actually more statistics that disprove that comment. So that if you actually look at a team in November and December,
Thanksgiving is that mark.
yeah, they don't. If you're not in the playoff race by November or December, something along those lines, they actually say your chances are less than 10% of making the playoffs.
That's probably more true, like in the modern NHL. But I'm talking like I'm talking combined experience. Definitely in my era when I was younger, like the 70s and the 80s, so many teams would come out of the gate like strong, but they're the worst teams. And at the end of the season, they're all on the bottom. But they had that first month; they were all leading the way. So I've seen that so many times. That's all I'm saying. I've seen that a lot of times. So you might guarantee they're going to win, but Chicago could surprise in the opening.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
don't think any game is an auto win in this league. It really
And that's the truth. Any team could beat any other team on any given Sunday.
And I will say, right,
but it's true.
The difference between now and the 80s, I think in the 80s you could actually, the glass was not tall enough, so players could just go into the stands and beat the crap out of fans and get it.
And they did.
So and they did. Mike Milbury.
Yeah,
great.
I remember. I saw that game live.
So
wasn't that a Habs game where they went out from the penalty box and they all?
I think it was a Rangers game.
Okay, they did it with the Habs too.
So
they did it with the Habs too. I'm positive of that.
Yeah, in the 80s it was the Broad Street Bullies,
70s.
Big Bad Bruins.
Broad Street. That's why I don't the Flyers. I don't like them in general. I'm not as bad today because they're not the same team. But no, the Broad Street Bullies. I hated the Philadelphia Flyers.
Everyone did. The whole league hated the Flyers back in the 70s, except when they played Mother Russia and beat them.
Well, of course,
4-1.
Of course. Then we're
and
all
it was the only team that beat Russia, and Russia almost refused to come out for the second period.
Second period,
crap out of them.
They almost didn't come out. It
and
took 20 minutes or something.
And said,
I watched that game.
Down and said, "Get your asses out there, or you're not getting paid."
Yeah, I watched that game.
There, and the Flyers kept kicking the crap out of them.
I watched that game, and we were cheering. They won't come out. The chicken shits. They won't come out. It's the only time I ever cheered for the Flyers.
I watched that game, a rerun of that game, and Ed Snyder made them look like pussies, and it was great. And when they finally did, they just got the crap kicked out of them all game.
You know what I'm going to say, though? I think that game changed the Russian game, where they realized we got to play more like the North American game. And I think that's when they had the players themselves became more able to be NHL players because the style changed over there.
Yeah.
They were very finesse. A lot of passes, very few shots, but when they shot, they scored a lot. They didn't have a lot of shots for the game, but they scored on the ones that they took. That's what I remember. And then it changed. And I think it was that Philadelphia game, man.
Yep. We got an interesting start to the season coming up for us, too. We Flyers first couple games, they open at Columbus on Thursday, I believe. And then they're at Ottawa. And that's always good to see that Ottawa. I mean, whenever they play Ottawa, I get a little special place in my heart for number 28, Claude Giroux, whenever he's out there. Because it's like, listen, if we win, obviously I'm always rooting for my team, and I want to see how they play. And I'm looking forward to seeing how these kids play and develop. But whenever I see Claude Giroux out there, I'm like, man, we should have retired here.
It's the same when Saku Koivu left. It was the same for me. I'd see, play the Ducks, and it was like,
the night he left. It was his last game as a Flyer, coincidentally, his 1,000th game as a Philadelphia Flyer.
I remember.
On March 17, 2021, or 22. Was it 22? I think.
21, I think.
20. I think actually it was 22. Now I'm thinking about it. But regardless, his last game as a Philadelphia Flyer.
Yeah.
I was a little intoxicated watching that game, and I started crying after the game. I have no shame in admitting that, too.
For sure.
They failed this man. They never provided him enough real talent around him to be an actual cup contender.
True.
But it was heartbreaking because I knew he was getting traded the next day to Florida or whatever day it was going to end up being. But, I was happy that he at least had an opportunity to play for the cup that year. But anyway, I'm getting a little sidetracked. On to what I want to see from our team. I want to just see how the youth develops. I want to see a concentration on the youth. I want to see Tyson Forrester and see how he plays in his first full season as an NHLer. Bobby Brink impressed it like hell, like I said earlier. And I want to see Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson for the first time in over a year. You know, they both came back from tough injuries. I want to see, especially Couturier. He's probably in that line to be the next C of this team. I want to see how that back heals up, not just these first couple games, but throughout the season. And Travis Konechny, he's probably their best player right now. He was on pace for 42 goals last year. Yeah. I think he had 31 in 60 games. I want to see if he can build off of that. And there's a possibility he could even get shipped at the deadline. And the more he plays and the more successful of a season he has, the higher that price will go up. I kind of hope they keep him, but if he does get sold, the deadline would be the best part to do it. Yeah. But anyway, I want to see if Konechny can continue to build off of that. I could also see Owen Tippett potentially having a 30-goal year. He was what we got back in the Claude Giroux trade. He dropped 27 goals last year, and he still missed 7 games. He looked really good. He had a breakout year, almost 50 points. Morgan Frost in the last 2/3 of the season became John Tortorella's near favorite player. And it's funny story leading up to this comment. It all started when John Tortorella compared him to a toilet seat. And yeah, there's a story behind that. Torts got interviewed because Torts is great. He back in December, and he goes, "How do you feel about Morgan's place?" He goes, "He's so up and down. He's like a toilet seat." And ever since that weird comment that came out, he found his game in that last 2/3 of the season. He came out, he was putting up about 7 points every 10 games. He was probably at about a 60-point pace for those last 2/3 of the season. I want to see if that can flow into this year. Kevin Hayes is gone. James Van Riemsdyk is gone. Ivan Provorov is gone. A lot of veterans are no longer on this team. The youth is really going to have an opportunity to step up and see how they can continue their development. Yeah. They added Ryan Poling. Nick Delorier is still here. He's our version of Milan Lucic. You don't piss him off. He will use your face as a punching bag.
Oh yeah, we had him here.
I wasn't crazy about the contract at first, especially the fact that he got an NMC, but he looks like a guy who is going to be
got a no movement clause.
I like that about him.
I'm processing that too. He's got a no movement clause.
I couldn't believe that when they did that. That was another Chuck Fletcher friggin' paradise contract. When they did
for
that,
a player like Delorier.
I mean, it's not as bad as the Blues who gave. I'm pretty sure half their team got no movement clause.
Yeah, but still, you gave this guy 4 years of a no movement clause for Nick Delorier, and I'm like, Chuck, why do you keep doing dumb crap like this?
Desperate was he for like a tough guy?
Because it's Chuck Fletcher. Nothing. He didn't have a plan.
Yeah,
his idea was grab a pile of crap, throw it against the wall, and pray it would stick, and it never did. He had so many. This guy couldn't even trade JVR at the trade deadline. He couldn't give him away for a bag of chips. They had a trade with Detroit at the last second, and that fell through.
But JVR had a $7 million AAV.
But the Flyers were willing to eat half of that contract.
Oh, that's different. Okay, no, that's different.
So he would have got him for $3.5 million.
Yeah, that's different.
Quarter of a season, and whatever your playoff run is, who is still a productive second power play pairing guy who can play in front of the net, probably play third line minutes. Middle six guy at this stage. He's slow as hell, and Cam, you're going to see this once you start playing. But he can score. He's streaky, though. He's very streaky. But he can score in bunches. It's just his speed and his ability to go back on the back check is going to make you want to pull your hair out. But anyway, off track. Main point for the Flyers this year is I want to just see how the youth truly develops.
Awesome. Matt, you get your chance. What do you expect for next week from the best team, our team?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to say, just for the season, and then I'll kind of get into the first couple games. I just want to see progress. I just want to see.
Feeling that from me. I put that in my last video.
I want to see progress with the rebuild. I want to see Slavkovsky kind of take a step.
Yeah,
progress. Want to really see how Newhook looks playing top 6 minutes like he should be playing.
Yeah.
I want to see health. I think that's the biggest thing. Knock on wood. I want to see a good, healthy season.
Yeah.
If we get that, I think we're going to surprise people with where we finish. We're not going to make the playoffs, but I think the last 2 years injuries have been by far and away the worst issue on this team, and I think Gordon and Hughes did a really good job addressing that. Right? I mean, Dr. Mulder retired, so now we have a younger head team doctor. Got much better training staff with the two hires. I forget their names.
Yeah, they made the moves they needed to there. I've got a question for you. I wonder how you'll answer this. I answered this on Twitter today. So it's a list of 5 things. Best player on the team, surprise player on the team, underrated player on the team, disappointing player on the team, and the record to finish. So for right now, for Matt, who do you think will be the best at the end of the season? Who's the best player on the team?
Oh, wow. See, it's tough, right? Because I think the 2 guys I'm thinking of, and the 3 of you guys, I'm probably thinking of the same 2 guys. I think they go hand in hand. But I think because he's going to be – I think because he's more well-rounded, I'm going to go with Nick Suzuki.
Nick Suzuki, that's who I had.
If Cole Caulfield hits 50 goals,
yeah, okay, but Nick Suzuki
that close.
But Nick Suzuki
hand in hand.
No, I don't disagree, and they're just it's just almost as important. But Nick Suzuki is so much more rounded a player.
Right.
Okay, so surprise player.
I'm gonna go with Juraj Slafkovsky.
That's who I had.
I'm gonna go with Slafkovsky. Because
we got no time, so no need for explanations.
Okay.
Underrated player.
Underrated? Alex Newhook.
I took Anderson for this.
I can see Anderson. I'm gonna take Newhook, and the reason I didn't take Newhook for a surprising player is because I know what he can do at top 6 minutes.
Right. No,
we're not gonna get the Colorado Newhook. We're gonna get a better version of Newhook.
Oh yeah,
I just think for the league in general, people are gonna go, oh, he actually is still very, very good. He just got stuck in a bad situation in Colorado. So that's why Newhook for surprising.
Disappointing player that you expect to be at the end of the season. You can say him. I said him.
I think it's Galley because I don't think he's going to play a full season.
That's who don't worry. That's who I took. So
I don't know. There's really no one else on the team that I really could put.
No, there isn't. I analyzed it too. I didn't want to say Galley, and I analyzed, and it's the only one you can. Ahead of.
We both go with Armia, except.
No, he's gone.
You said, no. We're taking care of this.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think their record's going to be?
Wow.
By the way, you guys think of it for your team.
I already got mine.
Okay, good. I'll give you what I gave out there. I have 39, 36, and 7. That's my prediction this year for them.
It's 85 points. That'll be impressive if they get that.
It's a bit of a bold prediction, but that's my prediction.
Vegas, actually, no, actually, I could see them potentially be around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you already had that early, like we did something.
No, I think points wise, I think they're going to be hovering right around that 80-point mark.
Okay.
I just don't.
Okay, so we won't break it down.
I do the math in my head too, because everything has to add up to 82. Yeah. But I think they'll be hovering right around that 80-point mark.
That's cool. That's enough.
I think, yeah. I like your record. Maybe one. I think maybe one more. Well, maybe one more overtime loss. So maybe they go 30. Maybe they go 38, 36, and 8.
Yeah, that's.
But cool. It'll be somewhere around there. I think that's a good call.
Alex, your team, but try to be quick.
I will.
Best player,
Travis Konechny. No doubt. I see him having close to a 90-point season this year.
Surprise player.
I'm going to say Noah Case. You're looking at the next year on Couturier. Phenomenal two-way player, or 5th-round pick. Watch him. He could potentially put up 50 points as well. He's going to be our third line, potentially even a point second line center.
Underrated player.
Underrated player. I'm going to say on this one, Morgan Frost. League's going to know who he is this year. League's going to learn who he is this year.
Disappointing player.
Travis Sanheim. I think he's going to just – that contract sucks.
And a record for your team.
Record.
0-82.
And then you woke up. No. 3-79 with all 3 wins against the Habs. I'm going to say 35-40-7, which would put us at 77 points.
That sounds right. Cam, your turn. Best player by the end of the season.
It's going to be Pasternak.
Surprising player.
I'm actually going to leave that to Matthew Poitras.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Underrated player.
Jake DeBrusk.
And then a disappointing player.
Ooh. I'm probably going to give that to either Shattenkirk or Zacha.
I was going to say you're going to say Zacha for what you said earlier.
And
I was thinking Shattenkirk myself.
Yeah.
I was also thinking maybe JVR. I just don't know how long his legs are going to hold up.
Is that where he is?
He's a slug.
Yeah, it's not so much the disappointment from Zacha. It's going to be from the faceoffs, and I don't want to give Zacha that because he's a very talented player. But so I'm going to stick with Kevin Shattenkirk. I just think he.
But I mean, we saw how bad Zacha is in the dot in the playoffs. I mean, I don't think he won a single faceoff.
Listen, Nody, he'll pick JVR by this time next month when he starts seeing how much of a streak fest he is.
Well, look, and I've said too. I think one of the big weaknesses for the Bruins is going to be in transition because I don't know if every line on that team, every pairing on that team is going to be quick enough to catch up with some of these teams.
I don't.
Teams. I mean, even like the Canadians without. I mean, there's a lot of fast teams. The Bruins are going to get caught in transition a lot.
I don't. The goalie and the defense is going to be fine. Like I said, the defense has not changed, so that assessment might be somewhat fair, but I don't think it's entirely true.
Well, it's good you got the 2 goalies are there. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you got the goal. The goalies, the defense hasn't changed. I mean, you lost a 2-way player in Bergeron, but Bergeron didn't play on all 4 lines. So,
no, of course not. So what do you think the record's going to be for the Bruins?
I think they'll hover around, I think, 92 points to about maybe 98 points, somewhere in between there. But I think that's where they'll barely get into the playoffs. I mean, it's crazy. You need 100 points to make the playoffs now if you think about it.
You can't have less than 96 anyway.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. All right, we're going to hit our final segment here. It's called 5 Quick Answers. So I got 5 questions. I'm going to read them out, and then we'll go and we'll do the same order. We'll leave Alex to last because he's going to say the most. We'll do Cam, Matt, and Alex on the answers, and we'll start with this one. In your opinion, how has the NHL's involvement with gambling affected the quality of the refereeing around the league? I mean,
how did I know this was going to be the first question? How did I know? I knew. I just knew.
You know me. So who do I say? Cam, you go first.
I don't think it's really hard to say. I really don't think it's impacting the refereeing. It's kind of hard. If you look at like gambling sites and things like that, there's just way too many things to bet on and too many things that are way out of the ref's control. So I think
that's actually a good point. Never thought of.
Yeah, I don't think it's that deep into the game, but I don't think the NHL is slow enough for it to be that impactful. But I think the refs need to there needs to be a consensus and better training for how they assess penalties because they are inconsistent.
And there's a league somewhere in Europe that's actually interviewing the refs after and asking them to explain their calls. I saw that.
I like that.
Matt, how do you feel on this?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Cam. I don't NHL wise. I don't think. I think the game's too fast. But
so just the refs are just shit then.
The refs have been shit for a while. But that's not to say that, I mean, you just never know, maybe a game here and there, because I've certainly seen things in college basketball. I've seen things in football where you go, that's a little fishy that this, was called here at this point in the game, and then the points ended up doing this.
Yeah.
There's some things you can kind of see, and they go, that's a little fishy. I haven't personally seen any of that in hockey because I just think the game's too quick.
I think I have.
So I'm going to say no.
Alex.
I don't think there's any real involvement. I'm going to just fall off what they just said. The refs are already garbage. They've been garbage forever, and they've always been inconsistent. I do think one thing that does stand out to me, though, is how many props there are, too, that really make it just almost impossible to bet, because don't just bet on the score of the game, or you can bet how many goals are scored. You can bet
there's
100
scoring, how many shots on net.
Yeah, there's 100 different.
There's bajillions of different things. So that's really the thing.
But I think you guys make valid points. But the important part is, I'm not talking about all those things. I'm talking about the wins and losses, basically. That's where the big money is in gambling, isn't it? And they're trying to get more.
Spread. I know people that just bet on props more than the actual games itself.
You might be right there.
That's what it really comes down to. And like it was said prior, I think Cam brought this up. It's too fast pace of a game. Like it's so hard to be able to impact the game. Maybe you'll see a call here and there that you look at. It's like, how the frig did that just get called? You should have freaking gone back to medical school.
Or if you were at Bentley the other night.
Oh my God. You want to talk about
if there was a hockey game where you could have went,
but wait.
Anyway, off topic.
This is quick answer, not.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I don't think it really is that much. I think the officiating is just garbage by default.
Now, I don't disagree that the officiating has been garbage, but I've definitely noticed in the last 5 years it's gotten worse. So either the refs are worse and they're just shit and they're not doing a good job training them, or there's something going on with the gambling. I don't know, but I'm if you watch me, I don't like the refs, and I've been pretty vocal about it, that I think there is some tie-in. For me, it's too much of a coincidence. I get that there's so many different things you can bet on. How are they going to control that? That's not what I'm talking about. They don't have to control that stuff. It's about the outcome of the game. I think there's an effect there, but that's fine. I mean, I may be wrong, and it was a good point Cam came up with.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
No, it's a good point Cam had come up with, and I hadn't thought of that, but I still don't think my opinion's changed. Next one. You're going to like this one, Alex. Did Montreal make a mistake by not drafting Matvei Michkov? Cam.
Sorry, Alex. No, they didn't make the mistake. And I think the answer is too simple for me and Alex, is I can already see him looking at me. But not having any control over your prospect for 3 years, it can be problematic. But there are instances where they can succeed. However, I'm a big believer that I need to see it to believe it. So when he comes to the NHL, or if he comes to the NHL, we will see.
Matt.
No, I don't think the Canadiens did at all. I'll be honest, I wanted Ryan Leonard, but at the end of the day, when they talk about the best player available, it's not only just skill and just pure talent wise, it's who's the best player available that's going to fit what we're building here in Montreal. And I think David Reinbacher fit that to a T. Yeah. For the longest time, we would say, listen, we don't have defenders that can get the puck up the ice and get the play going. We're going to have him soon. We're going to have Lane Hudson soon. I mean, they're building this team properly. And so I think they made the right choice.
Alex.
All right. And this is no disrespect to David Reinbacher. They absolutely did. And here's my reasoning why. And Cam makes a fair point when it comes to control of a team and a player. And I'd say about 90-95% of the players, that would be very valid. In this instance, this is a generational player. This is probably the fourth best prospect in the last at least 10 years. The only prospects I'd say that have been ranked higher than Michkov are this year in Bernard, Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews that have come out of the last 10 drafts. This is the best Russian prospect since Alexander Ovechkin. This is a guy who could potentially be generational. You're not just talking about a guy who's going to be filling in as a potential number 2, number 3 defenseman who could, and I think David Rombacher is going to work out for Montreal. This is, again, no disrespect to him. I think he's a good fit for that team. I think he's going to end up playing well. But Matvei Michkov brings in a skill set that you do not see that often. If this guy was in almost any other draft, he would have been number 1 overall. And as stated, the only reason is control. But he is right now in Sochi. He is putting on a show. He has been absolutely sensational. He's been putting up over a point per game actually since he's gone there, and he's only 18 years old. This guy's only going to get better. Now I get it. Well, I got to see what he does in SKA. Matt gave me a good point about that, and that is fair and valid. But I think this is a guy you're going to see at the end of the day when he's here. When he's 21, he's going to learn a lot. He's going to develop.
If he's
going to
here.
be playing with pros, and when he's here. You're going to see a guy
If he's here.
He will be here. I'm perfectly confident. When he is here, you're going to see a generational talent and a guy who can control the game when his style of play, his puck movement, and his hockey IQ is off the charts. The only thing people attack about him is his character, and I think that can be coached.
Sorry, Alex. I think he's going to be another Eric Lindros. He's going to get hurt, and that's going to be it.
You are a terrible human being, Cam. Shut up.
All right, my turn.
Your move.
I don't think Montreal made a mistake because I think Matt's point is they took the guy that was the best fit for them, and I dare say that it has potential in 5 years when we look back, could say that's the second best guy behind Connor Bedard at the draft. So I think that's a big thing. And Michkov is playing in the KHL on a weak team where he's the big boy in town, so he's getting lots of minutes, lots of chances, lots of touches.
Sochi is 9-1 in the last 10 games since he's gone.
Because they have Michkov. He's the only guy on that team that can do
he's
anything.
eating it up, but he's the big fish in a small pond on that team. When he and then in the KHL as opposed to the NHL, that's a weak league as opposed to a strong league. So it's a weaker league. I don't know that he's going to do that here. He's not a big guy in size. Does he have skill? Yes. There's no doubt about
100%.
that. I don't know how that translates here, and I think Montreal made the right choice. For them. They made the right choice for them. For you, your team, it could be the best choice, and that was the right. But for Montreal, it wasn't. That's what I say. Next, this one is for our boy down there in the corner next to me. He's going to love this one. Did the Bruins make a mistake by naming Brad Marchand captain?
The Rat King.
And I also asked this. Did they really have a choice, though? Cam, you get to lead off on that one.
So might as well rename the Bruins the Rat Pack.
I like that.
I like that. No, I like that. It works.
The Rat Attack.
No, I saw it coming. If we remember a couple of years ago, there was actually a video that the Bruins posted where they were joking around that Marchand was getting the captaincy, but Marchand couldn't hold it together, and he started laughing. He said, "No, I'm just kidding, Bergie. This is all for you." So that was a clear indicator that I think Marchand was there. He was on. I think he's, aside from Lucic, he's the last member of that cup-winning team on the Bruins. So I think that just makes sense. He brings a lot of NHL experience, a lot of talent too. He's one of the best puck retrievers. I mean, I think he has a lot to teach the team, and I think he can mature to that point.
Okay, but I got to ask you something on that. You don't think his relationship with the referees is not going to hurt that?
I think it's improved over the last few years. If you've actually watched the Bruins, and if we watch them honestly, like, yes, Marchand has had a horrid reputation, I'd say 5 years ago, but no, as of recent, he's definitely cleaned that up. I mean, yes, licking
A little
people,
bit.
Yeah, I would say a lot of it. Like, licking people in the face is definitely a thing of the past, but maybe that's just because they threaten him with money. And
He still flufoots people. I see it all the time.
Yeah,
he's dirty.
But I will say this: if we're gonna, compare apples and oranges, there are other members on other hockey teams, and there are worse individuals and players.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
There's plenty of competition now for Brad Marchand.
Yeah, if we want to nitpick play, there's definitely a player on each team that is arguably the irritator.
Yeah,
right?
no, there is.
Oh, yeah.
There is. I don't hate
So-
them as much as I hate Brad Marchand. That's the difference.
And that's
Matt.
fine. You know what the sad thing is? If he was on your team, you'd like him. That's the
Mhm.
problem.
I don't, but you may be right, and that would make my head
love
explode,
if he was
so I
on my
can't
team.
think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, but no, I think they made the right decision. Pasta's not ready as much as I love him. McAvoy's not ready as much as I love him. So there's really
But
no
it's-
other player.
It speaks to my second part, right? Did they really have a choice? And I'm going to just answer for me right now. I think it's a mistake. They did not have a choice. But I'm going to go with, I still think it's a mistake and it's going to bite them in the ass in certain situations. But I don't see who else they were going to, because it would be a real big diss to basically maybe your best player overall on the team.
Yeah, I don't think it's a mistake solely for the reason of Chara's lineage. If you look at Chara, who he mentored, and Bergeron mentoring Marchand, and I think that's just a strong captain lineage. So
That's fine, and I don't disagree with that. And I think that's why I added the second part. I don't think they had a choice. Matt,
I don't think it's so much a mistake, more so than I just feel like he, like you said, Rick, I just feel like there might be situations where it bites the Bruins in the ass.
but did they have a choice though?
But they absolutely didn't have a choice.
I don't think so. So that's why I added that. Alex, what do you think?
I don't think they made the incorrect decision. I think Marchand has grown a lot over the last few years. Does he still do stuff that I look at as like, you're a shitbag? Yeah, occasionally. But I think as a leader in that locker room, he is a very good voice. The Bruins have always been a team that has been a very close bunch, and that's one thing I'm very envious of them, is they've always had a really good locker room, especially when Bergeron is there. And I think Marchand was part of that too.
And off ice, he's got a great reputation. He
Exactly.
He's supposed to be a really nice guy.
He is. He's a very,
and
good
you know,
guy.
Mark, I would say that about him. He's a fantastic voice for that team. Like and you know what? I think he's going to make him play harder too. I don't think they made the incorrect decision. But you know what? Even if they did, who could they have picked?
No, that's the point, though.
Probably.
That's why I think we could all be kind of right, because even though I don't think it was the right decision, they did not have a choice. I don't believe they did.
I think it was the right decision personally, because
That's
I
cool.
think he's always been a good leader there. And
I can't really
And
argue.
he's that guy.
I can't
love
really
to have
argue
on
with
your
you
team. You hate to play against him.
As
He
much
is
as I want to argue, I can't though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's kind of what I was trying to say.
Like,
Like,
but he's a
I
damn
just
good
think
leader for that.
there's
He is.
concern with it, but I think
No,
at
he
the
is.
end of the day, it's fine. I don't think it's a mistake in the traditional sense. I just
Okay,
think
we
it's
got
something that's concerning.
All right,
We still got
next
two more.
question, Rick.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one, Alex. Is Daniel Briere the right person to turn the Flyers' fortunes around? Cam.
I can't really speak to that. I think the Flyers have the talent that's up and coming, so I think that's going to remain to be seen. I think we're just going to need to see how that talent develops and how they respond. So I think that's what it's really going to come down to.
Matt.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think Chuck Fletcher is the best GM the Flyers. No, I'm just kidding.
What? You almost made me snap. Don't you
Weak
dare
spot.
say anything about that.
I
Alex's
think
weak
I think
spot.
it's too early. I think it's too early to tell right now. I think he's made some really good moves that he had to make. But I just think right now it's really too early. You know, we'll see how players develop. We'll see what happens with Mitch Cobb. You know, I do think he will come over here, but again, that's still an if right now. But
I think he will too.
I think it's too I just think it's too early to tell.
Before Alex, you get to, I just got one thing to say on this. I'm okay with, I'd be okay if I was a Flyers fan with that. The thing that bugs me about Briere, his haircut. I can't look at the guy. It makes him look like, I don't know.
I can't argue that.
If he would have a different
His son's a
haircut,
dickhead too.
but if he'd have a different haircut, I
His
could
son
see it.
sucks, but
Anyways, that's
I
all
don't
I
wanna
got
get
to
into
say.
that.
So,
But-
Alex, how do you feel about your GM?
You know, I'll say this: he was the obvious decision when they first brought him aboard. He was always groomed to be the next guy. Montreal was actually trying to bring him aboard a couple
There
years
was
ago.
rumors.
And Alex was at the ready to start bawling his
I
eyes.
was
out.
adamant that I wanted them to keep him in, because the thing with Danny is he didn't just instantly get thrown into the fire and say, "Hey, you're a GM now." He's worked his way up the system.
I know.
He's been here in this organization for a multitude of years. He helped build up the Reading Royals. Then he worked his way up to he did a little bit of stuff at Lehigh Valley. He was a special advocate to Chuck Fletcher. I don't know how much he learned actually being with Chuck Fletcher, but then I think he learned what not to do.
Not to do.
But the thing with Danny is he used the hard R word, rebuild, something that I've asked for a very long time. I think it's kind of early, but I like the start, and I think he is the right guy for at least the rebuild section of this. Will he be the right GM when this team is ready to compete 4 or 5 years from now? I don't know.
But that's not 100% important, though, right? As long as he's the right
they
guy for the
need to
moment.
make the guy who starts this thing correctly.
Yeah.
They finally have admitted that they need a rebuild. And, this team, I don't think is stupid far off. I think this year they're not making playoffs. Next year, they're probably not making playoffs either. 2 years from now, I look at and say, let's see where we're at. They got some cap opening up. They get a little bit of dead money. They did some good moves so far. They added some prospects. They added some draft capital. They got 4 picks in the first 2 rounds next year. So we'll see what they do with that. They got Florida's first round pick this year. They got Columbus and Carolina's, I think, second round. No, they have Columbus and they got a second round pick gifted to them because Jay O'Brien didn't pick up his RFA and he got sent off as a UFA. But besides the point. But I think Danny is going to be the right guy at least to start this thing. Where they go from there, to be determined.
All right, here's a hot take kind of a question. So you're all going to give maybe some hot takes here. That's a Habs question. Will Cole Caulfield score more goals than Austin Matthews this season? If he does, is Caulfield then an elite goal scorer? Cam, you get to handle that first.
Wow, that's loaded.
Of course, it's a Habs question.
No, Caulfield does not score more goals than Austin.
He did last.
And
oh, wait, I forgot to preface that. In Cole Caulfield's last 82 games played, he has scored more goals than Austin Matthews and Jason Robertson. There's a whole bunch of names in their last 82 games. Just to say. So, sort of he has already. Now you can tackle it.
I still say no. At least right now. And that's just because of the amount of talent that is surrounding Matthews currently. I think they're going to set him up a lot for a lot of success. I mean, if Bertuzzi's a shooter, but that kid can pass too.
No, I agree.
So
I do agree. And Matthews can score. So I'm not, but okay. No, that's cool. That's a good answer. Matt. Oh, no, you're not done. Go ahead.
But I still think Caulfield might compete with Matthews on it because I've seen some of his coaching and training videos, and I think he might be more coachable. So I think that in the future might matter.
Oh, he 1,000% is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Matt. So what do you think now on that?
Oh, I think it's honestly going to be close because I think last season if Caulfield's healthy, he would have scored more than Matthews. Matthews, I think, only put up 40.
42, I think, Matthews. I want to say 42 for some
reason. It was 40 or 41 or 42 in 82 games. Caulfield was almost at 30 and 40. So I think it's going to be close. It wouldn't shock me. Second half of your question, I think Caulfield's already an elite goal scorer. I just think he's just going to be healthy.
Yeah, no, I don't agree. But if he does it this season, then I think that's the case. Alex, what do you think?
I'm going to say no just because I think Matthews has a big rebound season personally, especially because he knows that he's got some of his buddies playing for contracts and he wants to probably point stack that team as much as possible. But
they're also going to have to score their way out of a lot of defensive problems.
Yeah,
I think
that's how they're going to
the only guy that actually plays defense.
No, but that's also assuming he cares about that stuff.
I had Caulfield when asked a few months ago at I think 37 goals this year. I think he'll be right around that, and I only said that because I think there's going to be a point that he misses a couple games. I think he will be in the high 30s, maybe low 40s. But I think, to Matt's credit, I think he is already an elite goal scorer too, to be honest with you. I think Matthews will be in the mid 50s. I think Matthews has a big year personally.
Fair enough. I think anybody who knows me knows I think that Cole is a better goal scorer. I'm not talking all-around player. I'm talking he's a better goal scorer, pure goal scorer. I think I think if Caulfield hits 50, he outscores Matthews. And even if he doesn't, he might still. I don't believe Matthews will. You might be right that Matthews is surrounded by a lot of good players. But guess what? I think this season we're going to find out that so is Cole Caulfield. And there might be a lot of better players here offensively than going into the season that you could predict 100%. I don't like Matthews for a lot of reasons. And I'm not sold on him as being what they're saying he is, like best player in the league. Are you kidding me? No. So,
I'd even put Draisaitl ahead of Matthews.
I don't know who the hell is saying Matthews outside of Leafs fans that are saying that he's better than McDavid or Bedard.
You're right.
Soon to say Bedard.
You're right. Not outside of Leafs fans. Probably true.
Like Draisaitl is.
I think Draisaitl is the second best. I mean, he's the second best player in the league
overall.
I don't think it's close.
I don't think Matthews is top 10 overall either. Why? Because there's definitely 10 players in his caliber that have something here.
If we're gonna talk, I think if you want to rate that, then that's a little bit different. But yeah, I think Matthews is in the top 10 with respect to talent and everything else. But
your opinion.
But
your opinion.
I personally fucking hate Matthews too. So
everybody does. Okay, now the second part of the question.
Outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Second part of the question: if he does or doesn't, at the end of the season, Cole Caulfield will be considered an elite goal scorer because he'll have done it for a full season, and the numbers will be there. So there you go. That's it, though, guys. That's it. We're done. First ever episode of the Pucking Around podcast is in the can. I hope you guys all out there all enjoyed it. We'll be doing this every week. Audio one week, video the next. So hopefully you guys will come back. Please let us know in the comments, because you can leave comments, what you thought of it. Please give it a thumbs up or whatever they have there for a thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. And recommend this to your friends, because
share it around. Get it around to your hockey people.
Everybody wants to hear us talk. So that's it for us. Thanks everybody for listening, and hopefully we'll find you back listening next week. Have a great week,
guys.
Thanks, guys. Say goodbye. From all the boys in the band, hopefully we pass the audition. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Ciao, everyone.
Listening, guys.
Good, everyone. Thank you.